Hi, this is Plague Warrior 1, and today we're going to talk about the Godzilla Reiwa era. But before we get started, I'd like to talk about my comic created by my company, Zion Comics. And the comic is called Forerunners, currently live on Indiegogo. There's a sample there you can read, and if you like the sample, please back it. Alright, so I want to go ahead and start off with something very daring and say that the entire Reiwa era is terrible. And I should have known it was going to be terrible when it started with the name Rey because of all the traumatic experience I've had with Star Wars with the name Rey. If you're not familiar, the Reiwa era so far is composed of one movie, Shin Godzilla, and two animes. The first anime, I'll be honest, I can't even remember the name. It's so awful. It's just a 3-part movie series of animes where Godzilla has taken over the earth and humans have come back over thousands of years to see if they can reclaim it. Extremely awful. You'd think it was a good premise from what I just talked about, but yeah, it's extremely awful. The second is Godzilla Singular Point, and terrible as well. So let's get started on how this movie and these shows are terrible. First, Shin Godzilla. I saw this thing when it first came out of the movies. I was super excited. I hadn't seen a new Godzilla movie in many years, and I was like, they're bringing King of the Monsters back. I've been a fan since I was 8 years old or so of Godzilla, and I was super excited. I go and see Shin Godzilla, and I'm like, what is this abysmal piece of garbage? I absolutely despised the evolutionary process. When I first look at that, I'm like, that's not Godzilla, that's not Godzilla, and then he shows up in the final minutes of the film. The final form of it, pretty cool. I would have loved if they would have kept that through the whole movie. Because that final form looked fantastic. I can't remember any of the characters. Now, I remember reading somewhere where they said, well, they wanted to have it to where there was so many characters you couldn't keep up with it because Godzilla was the main character and you weren't supposed to remember all those others. That's a terrible movie idea. Terrible movie idea. Because then you end up like me. I can't even remember any of the characters. Now, I want to admit something. In the 1954 version, I can't remember any names. But I for darn sure remember, like, vaguely what the characters were. There was the scientist. One, I'm sorry, like I said, I can't remember the names. Created the oxygen destroyer. Then he had his love interest there, who also had a love triangle with this other person, and he was kind of buddies with the scientist from back in the day, so there was that love triangle there. I remember all those characters. I don't remember their names and stuff, because I haven't watched that movie in a long time, but I remember what they did in the movie. That's good. That's reason because they made a good movie in 1954. They didn't make a good movie this time. Then that the one thing I do remember about Shin Godzilla, I remember how they killed him. That was kind of interesting. They came up with that though, like at the last second. The one thing though that was truly terrible, was when they had that 5 to 10, I swear it's like 5 whole minutes or 10 whole minutes of this scene where there is like a guy on the ground or a pilot, and he says, "Can I shoot Godzilla?" And he goes over to his sergeant, and he's like, "I don't know, let me check." And so he says, he turns to his captain, "Can he shoot Godzilla?" Who turns to his superior, "Can he shoot Godzilla?" Who then turns to the president of Japan, "Can he shoot Godzilla?" And the president of Japan says, like, I don't know, maybe he checks with Congress or something, or the cabinet or whatever they got over there. And he goes, "Let me double check. Can he shoot Godzilla?" And they approve it. So then they go back through the chain of command all the way back from the president to that other superior to his captain to the pilot, and then the pilot finally shoots Godzilla. Now, I understand what they were trying to do. They're trying to make a political statement of when that tsunami hit Japan, and they had to go all through that bureaucracy to try to get things fixed. So they were trying to show in a movie format how that is terrible. But let me tell you something. This is not the movie to do that in. Okay? It's not the movie to do that in. It's a terrible movie scene. I don't care what type of political statement you've got to make. If it makes a terrible scene, rip it out of the movie. You want to know a good example of that? It's called the 1954 Godzilla, when they make an allegory for the atomic weapon a freaking monster. That's how you do that properly. They don't go in 1954. They didn't show Godzilla as a dinosaur for 5 whole minutes, and then an atomic explosion happens, and we will take another 5 minutes to see Godzilla die, or the dinosaur die, to then get rebuilt over a couple of years into a gigantic atomic creature, and that whole scene takes 15 minutes. They didn't do that because they knew how to make good movies back in the day. So, secondly, that terrible Netflix anime series, the first one that's split into 3 different movies. I want to try to get through this quicker. First movie, fell asleep during it, and I know that they kill one Godzilla, and it turns out there's an even bigger Godzilla, half the size of like a city or something like that. He's huge. Yay. Second movie, I never thought that somebody could do this. They take the idea of Mechagodzilla and just completely take anybody who liked Mechagodzilla, they just take a dump in your eyes. It's how bad it is. Mechagodzilla is a city. It's a city. It's not a robot. It's not a gigantic robot Godzilla lookalike. It's a city. It's a city that has the defense mechanism. Terrible. Third film, the only halfway decent antagonist, King Ghidorah. The idea of King Ghidorah in that movie was actually kind of cool. He's an interdimensional godlike being who comes through and is trying to suck the life force out of Godzilla. Good idea. The only problem is the rest of the movie, in that they talk about endlessly for, I want to say it's like 2.5 to 3 hours, it could be longer, about the philosophy of religion. No one cares. Absolutely no one cares. You want to talk about philosophy of religion? Go do it in a different movie. I understand it's Godzilla, but there's a way to do that's interesting. That wasn't it. That entire Netflix trilogy, trash. Don't watch it. Godzilla Singular Point. When I first saw this trailer, I was like, you know what? They might come back from those 4 previous installments, the 3 movies and then Shin Godzilla. This might actually be good. I should have known better. I watched the entire series. It hits the same beats as the Netflix trilogy and the Shin Godzilla movie, but somehow it's not as worse because that Netflix trilogy was super bad. But it almost gets there. It tries its hardest to be the worst. First of all, they do the evolutionary step again. Nobody liked it. It was horrible. They at least did it they did a little bit better this time. And that he at least looked cool. I think what was so offensive in Shin Godzilla is the CGI and the way they made him look was so crap that you were like, that's not Godzilla. This thing, in Singular Point, still stupid, but at least it's not offensive. Then they do the same thing as they did in the Netflix trilogy, is they decided to take Godzilla and use him to discuss something, in this case, the theory of time, please stop it. Like I said, you want to look at a good example of that? Godzilla 1954. Now, reason why I keep going back to that is because it's the first one. It always does everything right. They wanted to talk about atomic weapons. They did. But they talked about it in a cool and interesting way that kept your attention. This did not. And it probably what helped in the 1954 is it was only 2 hours. These things try to span like 6 to 10 hours or whatever. So to discuss these things, don't do that. It gets boring. I mean, literally, it's talking about the flow of time, going back to the future, back to the past, and and it's just like, no one cares. I just want to see Godzilla blow shit up. Excuse my language. I just want to see him blow crap up. Okay? And instead, I mean, we get that for a small bit, and it's nice. And I'll be honest, some of it is pretty. They do a good horror aspect of Godzilla. In these things, they do a good horror aspect of Godzilla. Godzilla almost becomes a horror monster like he is in 1954. The problem is everything else about these movies and shows. It's crap. If you want to watch a show about the theory of time, watch this show. If you want to watch a good Godzilla show, go back to the Godzilla animated series that came out after Godzilla in 1998. Speaking of that, here's what I want to say. I want to say something real controversial here, and probably nearly every Godzilla fan is going to disagree with me. Godzilla, the Reiwa era, is so offensively bad that I believe that the Godzilla 1998 American Godzilla, Zilla, is better. That's how bad these movies and shows are. I know everybody's going to disagree with me, and I probably need to leave. So please like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.